What is going on, everyone? I can't believe it. I can't believe it. The Eagles went into Lambeau Field on a short week, and Doug Big Balls Pederson gets the job done again, undefeated on those Thursday night games. They win 34-27. You know, the defense gets abused all night long, but they make big stops late. What a victory. This was, I don't even know how to explain it. It was insanity, Dan. Insanity. What is your take on this big-time W in Lambeau Field?
Run the rock! Run the rock! I mean, we've been saying it for 3 weeks. We actually got, we were still running a lot of inside zone and draws out of shotgun, but they were mixing up the looks and the redirections. We even got some guys in motion. We were running the ball with some creativity last night. It was opening up lanes. Jordan Howard rushed for almost 6 yards per carry. Miles Sanders rushed for over 6 yards per carry. You got Jordan Howard in the end zone 3 times, 1 in the air. I am so happy that we got to see a balanced offense yesterday. That's my biggest takeaway. I knew the defense was going to get toasted. I mean, this secondary lives in a toaster oven during the week, Monday through Thursday. But we've come out with a W. This is what we've been saying. You get Alshon Jeffrey back. You see how dynamic he is in this offense. And we can outscore anyone. This game reminded me a lot of the Super Bowl. Not to that extreme, but it did kind of remind me a little bit of the Super Bowl. I think we can win these type of games. It's going to be sweaty. I don't like it. We need to be better defensively. But I right now, this is just – it is what it is. It is what it is. We got to run the rock, baby.
I think we do need to look at this offense first and say – that was so solid, and that was the best we've seen this offense play for a long time with Carson Wentz as the leader. And let's touch on Carson before we get to the run game. I know the run game was the most important thing, and we'll get to Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders. But Carson Wentz was fantastic. He only had, 160 yards or so? Obviously, the stat sheet doesn't say it was this explosive night, but because of good field position, he was able to execute. We were fantastic in the red zone, dynamite in the red zone, which was the difference in this football game. He made plays happen. He made big-time throws. If I'm going to nitpick, there was the 3rd and 5 that happened on that one drive where we had the lead, and the drive started at our 1, and we got stopped at midfield. There was a 3rd and 5 to Alshon Jeffrey that he needs to make that throw. Yep. But that's a nitpick because all around, Carson Wentz was electric, and there's so many Carson Wentz haters out there, and they'll look at this game and say, well, we only had 160 yards. No. That means you don't know football. That means you don't know football because he made the plays happen. He was such a leader.
And he was at the line of scrimmage making adjustments pre-snap all night long, and it was working all night long. Everything Carson Wentz did last night, that's the epitome of what you can get from Carson Wentz. That's the potential of Carson Wentz as a game like last night. He was that effective. He threw 3 touchdown passes. He was just a magician at the line of scrimmage last night, and he only had 160 yards. Like the guy can do it all. He can do it all. This is what you're going to get from Carson Wentz when you can successfully run the football and you can get him in good field position.
Let's talk about this. Nelson Aguilar wasn't getting any looks. The difference Alshon Jeffrey makes is nuts. And the guy is reliable.
He's extremely reliable, and he's a huge target. I mean, this guy, you can throw this guy open in so many different ways. Those back shoulders on the outside by the out of bounds markers, they're just phenomenal with that connection. You see it a lot with Zach Ertz as well. We throw a lot of those back shoulder balls on the sideline. So getting Alshon Jeffrey back is a huge dynamic. I can't stop thinking about getting Deshaun Jackson back with him. I really want to see this entire unit get a couple games together in succession and really get going. Because last night, I'm telling you, if you run the football with this offense, it's really going to open things up. We can win games like this against anybody.
Oh, yeah, Deshaun will be such a threat. And we talked about running the ball. Before we get too sidetracked with the 2 backs, the offensive line. Making gaps happen. How about Isaac? All right, Isaac has the worst game of his career. Who's your daddy? What's he do? He responds with a game like that. Dude, they were creating so many holes and so many lanes for these running backs. They were dominant.
They were dominant, and it started early. You saw the very first play of the game. If Brandon Brooks and Miles Sanders kind of collided there, that would have been a really big game. That was one of the biggest holes I've ever seen on the first play of the game. And then Jordan Howard runs off almost like a 20-yard run. I was a little bit nervous because we had those 2 good runs and then we threw the ball 3 times and we had to punt early. And I'm thinking, oh, goodness, here we go. But we came right back. We looked good all night. We ended up sticking to the run game, which I'm so happy, bros. We ran the football. We got Jordan Howard, 15 carries. He gets to the end zone 3 times. We've been asking for this. We have. And I'm a big Miles Sanders fan. We've been asking for it.
I'm a huge Miles Sanders fan. Dude, so Jordan Howard's going to steal the headlines for 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards from the line of scrimmage. He even caught the ball a couple times. Jordan Howard's going to steal the spotlight, and deservingly so. I think he played such a great game. But what Miles Sanders did, it can't go under the radar. Now, I can argue that he flipped the switch for this team with the big return in the special teams game.
100%.
Absolutely.
That was a huge momentum flip in that moment, for sure. And he had more yards per carry than Jordan Howard last night, which says a lot because Jordan was running the ball extremely well. 72 yards on 11 carries. He had that big kick return. You know he can be effective in the passing game. This is why I like Miles Sanders so much. We got to be a little bit more creative in how we run the ball. We did that last night. That's what we've been asking for. I think that having multiple guys back there is going to be huge for us down the stretch.
Definitely. For Miles Sanders to put the ball on the floor 2 times in the last game and to respond with a dominating performance like he did yesterday, you got to give some. Here we go. They're more than golf claps. These are loud claps. And he deserves it. So just a great game from the offense. And like I stated, the red zone was the difference maker because we saw Green Bay get to the red zone a couple times. They weren't able to execute. We got to the red zone, and we made it happen, and we put it in the end zone. Now, let's talk about this controversial move by Doug Pederson because we score a touchdown. It's 27-20. He goes for 2 to make it a 9-point game. You're texting me screaming, dumb. You make it 8 points. For a split second, I was confused, and then after that split second was over, I thought to myself, that is okay with me because that is Doug Pederson. And look, you put your head back, and that's not fair because that's Doug Pederson. That's Doug P, though. You can't change it.
But not there.
Why? When then?
Because you had the pressures on them to go for 2. Why put yourself in a situation where you need to get a 2-point conversion when you already have them pinned in a corner? That I'm okay with going for 2 in a situation like that. If it's the 4th quarter, there was so much time to wait on that.
No.
What if we're up 8 and we force a punt on the next possession? We could potentially go up 2 scores anyway. You make them go for 2 there.
You're changing Doug's MO though. Like that's what he does.
I like the going for it on 4th and 2, 3, 4, 5 between the 30s. I don't like the going for 2 there.
I do. Because this is the mindset, and this is how I think that Doug Pederson goes with this. If you need a 2-point conversion, right, would you rather your offense get that 2-point conversion, or do you trust these corners that got toasted for almost 500 yards? And I know they made 2 plays late, but the goal line stand was timeout. The goal line stand was on the Packers not running the football, okay? And then
why weren't they running the football, bros?
Because we have a great run D, but it doesn't matter.
Run the ball, baby.
Oh, man. Listen, they did make 2 plays late, but I don't care. I would rather this offense get a 2-point conversion than trust this defense to stop one.
I understand the mindset. I hear you. A little later in the game. I just thought it was a little early to do it.
It was definitely on the aggressive side.
I thought it was early. I'm okay with it a little later in the game. I just think with that much time on the clock and Aaron Rodgers, I just think you got to make them do something. I also understand I don't know. You see, you got me stumped here. A little early. That's all I'm saying. It's
the beauty of Doug Pederson.
You're not wrong there. You're not wrong there.
Exactly. Not many coaches go for
on his opponent's 15.
Well, Dallas Goedert was back. He was effective. The 2 tight end sets was a difference maker as well. You know, you really got to study the line of scrimmage and what we're working with for these run plays and that extra tight end. It's a lot. And the fact that we didn't have Dallas Goedert at one point because he was banged up, and you can see the difference when this team started to get healthy. I know we're not fully healthy, but we're starting to get players back, and you can see things starting to flow once the pieces start to, get put into the puzzle correctly.
No doubt. I think we learned over the last few weeks that we may be a little top heavy when it comes to our receiving core. We need these guys out there. If we're going to be this banged up, Nelson Aguilar, Matt Collins, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, they're not going to step up and play at a really high level. So we need these guys out on the field. Last night, you've seen them all out on the field with minus Deshaun Jackson. You can see how effective they are. One play we ran last night, it was that little slip screen to Dallas Goedert late in the game. We've run that play a few times over the last few years where they get either Sproles as running back or Nelson Aguilar get the motion going the other way. They fake the screen to one side and then they dump it off to Dallas Goedert on the other side. It's like a double screen. That plays extremely effective. I feel like every time we run that, we get 15, 20 yards. Maybe throw that in there a few more times, Doug EP. I'm so excited to have Dallas Goedert back, especially after dropping a touchdown last week. He gets in the end zone last night. Just shows how much confidence they have in him going straight back to him in the red zone, even with some weapons being added back to the team, still getting him in the mix. You love to see it.
Absolutely. I love that play too, by the way. When it was ran, you just smile. You see the first fake, you're like, yup, here comes the other side, baby. Carson,
them athletic big boys getting upfield. Ooh.
Absolutely. Now, before we go into the defensive side of the ball, I want to ask you a question on Doug, because I thought Doug had a tremendous game plan as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time late in this game where I believe he wasted a challenge on that defensive pass interference, which affected the game later because he didn't challenge the one that hit the ball on the ground because he didn't want to lose his last time out. So
correct.
I thought in that moment to challenge that defensive pass interference when you already saw a worse one not get called, I think Doug needs to do a better job in that moment because it cost it down the stretch because that pass that wasn't actually caught was about an 8-yard gain. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think you got to kind of maybe read the situation a little bit better because if that's the first challenged pass interference of the game, it may get overturned because he absolutely did take all of Alshon Jeffrey's left hand out of the play right as he went to catch the ball, which it's pass interference. But like you said, there was a pass interference on us that they reviewed that they got wrong that very well could have been a pass interference earlier. So you can't obviously they're going to let that one slide in that situation. Almost like that play, the last play of the game, the interception. A lot of Packers fans are complaining about on social media saying that was pass interference. It's another one of those bang, bang, got there a tenth of a second early. Are they going to flip that? They haven't yet this year. So we're kind of still adjusting on the fly with all the replay stuff, I think. But again, in that situation, I think just how the game had played out to that point and the similar plays that had already happened, I didn't think it was a good challenge, although it was pass interference. It's just how the game was. That was the flow of the game at that point.
Definitely. Now, I guess a broader question, not specifically to this game, but you mentioned how they aren't overturning it. I'm okay with that. I like that they're harsh on it, but I'm okay with the Alshon one not being called. I think the one on Avonte Maddox, I think that should have been overturned, no? Because now, down the line, when the Eagles challenge a play like that, I'm going to want that called because that was clearly pass interference.
100%. Oh, absolutely. And in my opinion, the Alshon one is too. I mean, he was about to make a body catch, and he took his left hand out of the play.
But see, my argument for that is that's one of the ones where I think, okay, yes, it was, but if you criticize every single play, then you're going to find pass interference on every one. But the Avonte Maddox one should have been called.
I agree with you.
I do. Definitely. All right, so that's what I think about
I am interested. There's going to be some tight calls this season that are going to change the direction of football games. Hopefully we don't see a situation like this affect a playoff game because it's going to be buck wild in football land if something like that happens. But we're still adjusting on the fly to this replay thing. It's new and totally different. Totally different.
It's almost as if they made the change. Like, they put the rule in there to not ever make the change, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like they said, it's really only there for the blatant ones, like the one that cost the Saints a trip to the Super Bowl last year, which is one of the worst no calls I've ever seen. I think they're trying to stick to their guns on it has to be brutal or we're not going to overturn much. And I'm okay with that.
Definitely. That's way better than abusing it and calling it on every tacky play.
Can't be tacky. You can't be tacky.
Okay, so let's get to the defensive side of the ball. Derek Barnett had the big game-changing play. Now, he had that really ugly hit in the first part of the game there, and we can vouch for him and say, okay, listen, that's not his style of play. He's not a dirty player, and I believe I saw a tweet from Adam Schefter this morning saying there will not be a suspension. He probably will get fined, I believe it said, but no suspension. Derek Barnett is not the type of player to headhunt anyone. It was a late hit. It was a very poor decision on his part, but he's a respected player, and I'm sure he feels absolutely horrible about it.
Yeah, it was obviously a bad angle, a bad split-second decision. I mean, he didn't go in there straight crown of the helmet. Like, that's why I feel like he's not getting suspended, because it's almost obvious that there was no malicious intent. It was a terrible play. You can't let that happen in that situation. But he didn't do it on. He wasn't.
He definitely didn't do it on purpose.
It wasn't headhunting the guy.
But he did make a big play though. Like I don't want to get
and
too
he made a
heavy
huge.
on that.
The strip sack was huge later in that game. Huge. That's another momentum shifter that gave us good field position when we absolutely needed it.
I thought as a defensive line, and we had our strongest game. It wasn't great, but it was our strongest game in terms of what we've seen.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So, Fletch left the game for a second there. Fletch is hurting.
Yeah.
He's hurting.
He is. Well, we only have 1 sack yesterday. We have 3 now on the season in 4 games, which is just brutal. I believe last night they said it was second to last in the league. Rodgers was killing us on the ground last night too. We were making him move around a little bit. I would say we were getting more consistent pressure yesterday than we were any other game this season. Rodgers was getting outside of the pocket and kind of making us pay for it, but we weren't really finishing the job. There was actually a couple plays there where Rodgers brushed off of people, and I was like, oh my goodness, this guy looks like a 28-year-old Ben Roethlisberger tonight. But it was enough at the end of the day. Ben, don't break there in those last 2 possessions. It's all that really matters. We know the defense needs to be better, top to bottom.
So let's talk about this. So Jim Schwartz, okay, he was very firm on his mindset. We're gonna work with the pressure, and we're gonna sit back and play off. Well, that hasn't been working. So now, and all of the fans, blitz. We are bringing the blitz, and it is getting shredded. So My thing is, and I'm not the biggest Jim Schwartz fan in the world. I've been way harsher on him over the last few seasons than I have been this year. What does Jim Schwartz do when Sidney Jones is an embarrassment and shouldn't have even been drafted ever? Like, he plays like an undrafted player. You have Avonte Maddox, who, he's good in the slot or whatever, but when he had to take over on that outside, he got abused and looked so lost. Ronald Darby couldn't play to the point where we booed him off the field. Rasul Douglas is our best corner, but here's the thing. Rasul Douglas he's the hot chick who's surrounded by the ugly chicks. So he looks better than what he is because everyone else is abysmal. Jim Schwartz is working with nothing. He's working with nothing. So I don't know how I feel about Jim Schwartz right now, because he does need to be better at times and maybe disguise things or whatnot. But at the same time, me and you are out there right now trying to stop the team.
Yeah, no, these guys, I'm pretty sure Monday through Thursday, they actually stay inside of a toaster oven. He has nothing to work with. We said the same thing last week. You hit the nail on the head. He has nothing to work with. And when we're not getting consistent pass rush, doesn't help that Timmy Jernigan and Malik Jackson are gone. What do you do? I mean, you're in Lambeau playing Aaron Rodgers on a Thursday night primetime football game. You're not getting sacks, and you have what I would consider minor league Canadian football DBs in your secondary. What do you do? What do you do?
Dude, we got shredded yesterday. How did we win that football game, dude? We got shredded. How about that? How about the touchdown we let up at halftime?
Oh, my goodness. They stomped down the field. Dude, Devontae
Adams had 100 yards in the first quarter.
Yeah. He didn't play, 20 minutes of that game, and he had 180 receiving yards?
I don't get it. Like, how did we actually win that game?
Our DBs, I was listening to the radio this morning. I'm not sure who said it, but there was a full conversation. I agreed entirely on all fronts. The DBs seem to play kind of scared. It's almost like they don't want the ball thrown in their direction, and they're kind of just trying to keep plays in front of them, and then they just don't. It seems like they're never really in a position to make a play, and every time there's a close play, someone's cheating. I mean, you saw a couple PIs last night, the one at the goal line where he had the right hand wrapped. He's all over the left arm, but he comes up celebrating. Like, you're all over him there. Like, it's like I haven't seen a good play from a DB on this football team in a while, especially against some of these better receivers. Not that it's fair to judge a guy based off of his matchups against Devontae Adams, but, I mean, no one's stepping up whatsoever.
Don't say no one. Craig James, baby.
One play, baby. I like it. He came in and he was aggressive. He made a play on the receiver a tenth of a second before the ball got there. That's what you want. Next man up. That's the first time this season somebody's gone next man up in this secondary. He only had one chance. He's 1 for 1, though. I'll take it. He's got a better batting average than everybody else back there right now.
The Eagles came back in Lambeau down 10-0. Now, the Packers are known this year to come out to a hot start and then just cruise the rest of the way. Like, when you look at their numbers, they are scoring majority of their points and getting in the end zone early, and then they just kind of become mediocre. So it's a weird trend for this team, and it's a weird situation with Matt LaFleur and having Aaron Rodgers and having a defense. And for their defense, think about this, right? The Carson Wentz haters, and I hate to keep going back to this, but the Green Bay,
please.
I know. The Green Bay Packers defense is legit. Like, they are legit. And Carson Wentz in this offense just went on the road on a short week and did insane amount of damage against that D. Now, you're going to say, well, look what they did to our D. Well, what they did to our D is not even realistic, all right? That's how pathetic we are defensively. But to a good defense, to run the ball down their throat, to make throws that are timely like we did, and for Carson Wentz to go in there and do that with essentially this team's back against the wall, you can argue, because he has no playoff games, that this is his biggest win as a starter. You can look at LA 2 years ago, but he got banged up and didn't finish the game. Maybe that game against the Carolina Panthers, but this is right up there with the best wins of his career.
This is number one for me. This was a back against the wall, must-win football game on the road against an all-time quarterback and an undefeated Packers team in primetime football, and he stepped up, and he was amazing. He was methodical at the line of scrimmage all day long. I can't beat on that enough. The amount of audibles and changes he made at the line of scrimmage yesterday, and everything was just clicking, especially after that first drive. Everything was just clicking. 3 touchdowns. Other than that, again, you hit on that as well, that 3 and out. The 3rd and 5 out route to Alshon that he missed. People are going to harp on that, especially the haters, so I'm not going to ignore it. He missed that throw. Absolutely. Needs to make it. Usually does. In that moment, it didn't. But in a football game where we put 34 points up and we were storming up and down the field all night long, he put us in a position to win that game from start to finish. So I'm not going to be upset about one ball when we ended up winning the football game. He was phenomenal last night.
He definitely was phenomenal. Now, Joel Embiid. Was he phenomenal last night on Twitter?
I love JoJo, man. Let that man cheer for whoever he wants. That dude's going to get buckets for the Sixers. Football team he cheers for.
I know. I thought it was great. And then the ending with Mike Scott.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I'm going to send my boy on y'all.
It's so great. It really is. Like, I love that. That's the beauty of it, man. I talk about the beauty of Doug Pederson's balls, or the beauty of Joel Embiid is his passion and goofiness. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love when guys are cheering for the teams that they like. Like, just because you play here doesn't mean you need to be. I'm a diehard Philly sports fan because this is where I'm from. I'm proud of the area. I've been cheering for these teams my whole life. Joel Embiid's not even from this country. If he wants to be a Packers fan, who cares? He's going to get 35 and 12 every night for the Sixers. That's all I care about. Let him chirp. It's just fun.
Yeah, like say, for example, just say my hockey career ended, maybe a little bit better than I expected to, and I was playing in the NHL for the St. Louis Blues winning the Stanley Cup. I'm going to be rooting for the Eagles. Yeah. I'm going to be rooting for the Sixers. I'm going to be rooting for the Phillies. And maybe even the Flyers if I'm an idiot,
There's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. I like it.
So now that we have a couple more days off, if you will, it gives us time to figure out
another reason why I hate Thursday night football. We have an unfair advantage going into week 4 against the Jets, but continue.
Sure, but I think it adds, we had a disadvantage to play this game on Thursday, so does it even out?
Does it?
Yes.
Does it? Because the Jets aren't the ones gaining from our disadvantage this week.
You're overthinking.
On their own.
Because they're going to get a chance where they're coming off a Thursday night game, and everyone has.
Do we know that?
Yeah, they stink. So who cares?
That's
Regardless, we are banged up right now. So the couple extra days, maybe we can figure out what we're going to do at this cornerback position. Sad news about Avonte Maddox getting carted off, of course, but apparently everything's okay, and it's all precautionary stuff at the moment. which is very good to hear. But we have big-time holes there, and this Ramsey thing, I'm sure it's not going away. Every other day, he's got a sickness. He's going to see his wife who's pregnant. He's doing this. He doesn't want to be there. The GM wants to get rid of him, but the owner doesn't. Who knows? But because we are so flawed there right now, these conversations are not going to go away. And I'm at the point right now where we need to look at Howie and say, don't give up 7 first-rounders, all right? Because I know that there are people saying, give up anything, just go get him. I'm not to that extent. You need to be realistic here because you need to sign him to a 5-year, $80+ million deal once you give up a couple picks. So be realistic, but you gotta be persistent on the phones with this guy because at this point, not only are we banged up and we need to find something, but we have potentially the best cornerback in the game sitting there. So it's almost a perfect match.
Yeah, and it's a weird negotiation too. You already see people online saying last night we may have raised the price with how bad we played, but then on the flip side, Ramsey's just like you said, there's a groin this day, back the next day, hanging out with his wife the next day. He doesn't want to be there. It's obvious. He does not want to be there whatsoever. He wants out. The Jaguars have to move him, right? If the guy's just not going to – if he's not going to play football, if he doesn't want to be there, he's not going to give you 100% on the field either. He's going to preserve his body. They're not going to say that, but it's the truth. If he goes out on the field, he's not going to play 110% in this situation. They have to move him. Like, there's weird bargaining chips on both sides. A trade is eventually going to happen. I'm not giving up 2 firsts. The Zach Ertz reports are annoying and ridiculous, not going to happen. What would you do? What's your peak, like, line? Where's your line?
I think what I wanted to do, and this was the reports a little bit earlier, was something similar to a first, a third, and Sidney Jones. But now that and now that there's more tape on him, I think it's pretty obvious the guy stinks.
Yep.
And I love tweeting this. I tweet this every game, and it gets a lot of love. He's Nick Pivetta, and I love it. I love the comparison. It couldn't be any more perfect. Sidney Jones, it was such an embarrassing pick. It hurts me. It hurts me.
Did you just call Nick Pivetta embarrassing?
Well, yeah, of course. Did I?
You're not wrong. I hate my life.
I wish I had the clip where I can enter it right here in the podcast where you looked at me. You looked at me right in the eyes, Dan, and said, break out Pavetta this year.
Honestly, what happened to the changeup? They never even reported anything on it. He just stopped throwing it. He went out there with the same stuff and did the same thing. Anyway.
Yes, Sidney Jones is Nick Pavetta on the football field. But if you're going to ask me what I would give up, the first, the third, Sidney Jones, something of that nature. 2 first, it's a lot, but you're talking about the best corner in the game. I would have to maybe counter that with like a first and a second, maybe. 2 first is a lot when you think of it as, you just got Andre Dillard. Well, is this cornerback worth potentially getting a franchise piece that you can move on with, even though it's going to be a later first round. We all understand that, but you can find a piece that can be beneficial in the 20s in the first round of an NFL draft. So 2 is a lot, but you are desperate and you are getting the best in the league. It's tough.
He instantly makes our football team much better. Even with all the zone we run, you can still run zone and just have him man the best receiver on the other team. Like, you can do that.
That's exactly what we do.
And you can work around that, and it'll make the zone for everyone else easier. It'll make the field smaller in that situation. It would be a huge game changer for the team. The sticky thing with Ramsey comes with re-signing him and how much money he's going to take and how that affects the rest of the team later. But in the now, I mean, if you talk about this receiving core getting healthy and coming back together and adding Jalen Ramsey to the secondary, we go from, oh my gosh, we're going to be 1-3, the sky is falling, oh my goodness, we're right back to being a legitimate contender for the Super Bowl again. I already think we can outscore anybody on any given Sunday as is. We just need our guys. Ramsey makes us elite. I'm trying to look up exactly what draft picks we have for the next few seasons because I know that there was some movement. I think we have an extra coming from the Nick Foles trade. I believe it's a third.
Yes, a third, yeah. The one thing I want to mention, though, on Jalen Ramsey, I do think he will help this team defensively, obviously, but we will still be flawed in areas. Like, yes, the opposing best wide receiver will be covered man-to-man with Ramsey, but you will have Sidney Jones, Avonte Maddox. We will have these other players out there that still will probably get torched throughout the game. But taking away their best weapon is a big-time factor. So, yes, it will help, but I still think we will see struggles with this defense.
Yeah. If I'm Howie Roseman, though, if I'm comfortable with what the cap looks like for the next 2 or 3 years, listen, the Eagles have their own first-round pick, their own second-round pick, their own third-round pick. They have a compensation pick from the Jaguars in the third round. They have their own fourth-round pick, their own fifth-round pick, the fifth-round pick of the New England Patriots in the Michael Bennett trade, and they have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers seventh in the Deshaun Jackson trade. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have 8 picks in the draft coming up, 2/3 and 2/5. There's no reason why we can't get this done with just one first rounder, in my opinion.
One, yeah. I don't think it's just going to be a one.
Would you do a 1-3-5 and let maybe like a player?
Yes. As long as the one, because listen, I'll be honest with you. I don't trust Howie Roseman. I don't trust Howie Roseman drafting. Like, I don't think this guy is great at drafting. Yes, I think Andre Dillard's a good pick, but did we? I know we saw only a couple snaps for J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and he's got plenty to learn in this league, but, you know, a second-round pick on a guy who can't really be beneficial to us right now kind of burns.
Yeah.
Sidney Jones is atrocious.
It's been boomer bust. There's been good guys, too, though. Like Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert are good picks. And Lane Johnson was a Chip Kelly pick. Never mind.
He was.
No, you're right. We can't give Chip Kelly too many. There's been more misses than makes, though. I'm not completely disagreeing with you.
Definitely. Like, where would you put Derek Barnett, just out of curiosity?
Right now? Meh.
Yeah, exactly. He's not an absolute horrendous player.
There's still potential there, but we haven't gotten it yet.
Definitely. I agree. So I wouldn't even put Derek Barnett in a big time, as a big time selection for Howie. So yeah, I would give up a first, a third, and a fifth. We're talking about the best corner in the game.
Yeah, but I mean, the Jaguars can say the same thing about this, but our pick's going to be low too. And
it is.
The fifth from New England's also going to be low because the Pats are going to be picking super late. They may pick last. So, although we do have a lot of picks, they're back-end picks, but I still think we could get something done. I really
think so
do.
too. All right, so
and we have other pieces. We have skill guys we can move too. I mean, would Corey Clement be somebody that we could toss into a deal like that? I feel like we still have too many running backs right now. Did he even play last night? And wasn't he active?
He was active, but he's coming off of that shoulder problem. And how about Nelson Aguilar?
We got two good boys back there right now.
Would you trade Nelson Aguilar, or you don't think he has any sort of market because everyone knows he can't catch, and his contract is over this year? So
yeah, I think that he makes a decent amount of money to be nothing more than a solid 3 that's really only good in the slot. I do think that he could play a good role in an offense that runs 4 or 5 wide spread sometimes, but yeah, he's not going to step up and make big plays for you, especially if you're dealing with injuries and guys are out on the other side. He's someone that's going to feed off of holes that are created by his teammates, and he's going to be inconsistent with his hands. I like Nelson Aguilar. I don't know what his trade value would be, though, at all.
Well, his hit is $9 million, and he's a UFA, so probably not much at all. And he can't catch the ball. All right, so let's get the final thoughts here as we end the podcast. My final thoughts, holy hell, how did we do it? The offense was fantastic. That was the best game I've seen out of Carson in a long time. The running backs, Doug Pederson, kudos to them. It was beautiful to go into there in a hostile environment on a short week with our backs against the wall. Doug Pederson with a beautiful game plan. We got the job done, and I do need to tip my cap to the defense late, but whew, they were abysmal all night.
Bend don't break at the absolute best time. We got a play or two out of them at the they hung on by a straw. We're talking about 1 yard on the last play of the game, but they held on. It's going to be like this, isn't it? It's just going to be like this all year long. I'm a little bit excited about it. I'm also very nervous, but I think this football team's going to be able to score with the best of them, and they're only going to get better as they get healthier and they get more time on the field together because these guys are – I love Carson Wentz. We effectively run the football. We can beat anybody. So I'm looking forward to smashing the Jets week 4, and I'll be back to talk to you about it on the day after.
Let's go. All right. Well, thank you so much for hopping on. It was another beautiful W out of the Philadelphia Eagles. Thank you guys so much for listening, and see you guys next time.